Okay, we're here today with my good friend Rhonda, and just so thankful that she is here to talk with Hope for the Helpers. She has experience with having a family member that used drugs and subsequently passed away. And I want to make sure that today we honor him with what we are sharing with other families. And I just appreciate you so much coming on here and being willing to share your heart and your experience and all the different great things that you have to offer families that are looking for support. So, Rhonda, tell us a little bit about you, and more importantly, tell us a little bit about Davy.
Well, I am Rhonda, as you said, and I live here in the Tri-Cities, and I currently am full-time Nana to my little
Yes.
grandson. So I'm very occupied with that, and maybe a little less occupied with the advocacy work I was doing, but it
Hmm.
still stays near and dear to my heart. And
Yes.
there's a lot of times I can look at my grandson, even though his daddy is not David, but they have a lot of mannerisms and likeness, and it's
Yes.
like seeing him again almost. And I
I'm sure.
certainly make sure that he knows about his Uncle Davy. And we
Yes.
have he asked me one day, how did he die? So we've had that
Yeah.
conversation too, and he's learning. He's 8, but it's never too young to start. So advocacy at home now.
Yeah.
But
So, since you mentioned your grandson's age, do you feel what do you feel as a person who has lived through the tragedy of overdose? What do you feel is the right age to talk to children? And this can be your opinion. Yeah, I don't know that there's a
yeah,
specific right age, but what is your thoughts about that?
I think it depends a lot on the child. Each child is going to have different levels of understanding and interest for that
Hmm.
matter. And Lucas takes a big interest in news and things that are going on in the world. So it makes it a little bit easier to talk to him about hard things.
Hmm.
And he's always, questioning. If I'm watching the news, he's always interested in what happened and why. And
Uh-huh.
he will also go try to interact. I'm the policeman and I'm catching a bad guy and they're going to go to jail. Just as he's watching, if he's watched a big accident, the next thing I know,
Hmm.
he has a floor full of fire trucks and
I bet.
ambulances, and he's very intuitive that way.
I'd
But
say.
when he asked, what happened to my Uncle Davy, um, I just felt like I had to tell him the truth in as simple way as I could.
Hmm.
And so we had a conversation about bad medicine and good medicine, and good drugs,
Very
bad
good.
drugs, and that you get
Hmm.
your medicine from the doctor and from the pharmacy, and you don't take anything that doesn't belong to you. If someone else
Hmm.
tries to give you medicine, you can't take it unless it came from your doctor.
Very
And
good.
that was how we started that conversation.
Hmm. Hmm.
So he asks questions from time to time now, but he's unfortunately had to lose his great grandmother and his grandfather in his short little life. So
Hmm.
death is kind of second nature to him now. He understands people die, and
Yeah.
so he's interested in why.
Very
So
good.
we also had a conversation about alcohol the other day because we
Mhm.
were talking about a picture that he saw and he wanted to know where that person was.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not gonna not tell the truth.
Right.
So I had to tell him that person died because they had a problem with alcohol.
And I
And of
think
course,
kids
he
know when
didn't
you're
know
not.
anything about that.
Yeah, I think kids know when you're not telling them the truth about something. I think
So,
they grab onto that and they're like, I'm not so sure that's what that's what they're saying. Yeah. Well, let's
right.
skip back to Davy just for a minute, and looking back on his life. what were some of the early signs that he was using drugs, maybe misusing drugs, all the things? Did you have any sort of signs and clues about that?
I was kind of clueless in the beginning. It just never crossed my mind. I spent my lifetime teaching my kids don't drink alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I lost too many family members because of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my stance. You don't drink alcohol ever. And I totally missed the part about drugs
Yeah.
because I didn't know. It
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't something that I even thought about talking to them about.
Now, what kind of drugs did he use
He
during his
used
time?
opioids, and he got started after surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So little did I know that he was at such a risk, um, that he could develop an addiction that quick.
Mm-hmm.
He fell down this huge flight of stairs. It was several levels, and he shattered his ankle and was taken into surgery that day to put a lot of pins and things in it to put it back
Yeah.
together. So they put him on the opioids then, and actually they put him on OxyContin, and they kept giving it to him for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that he had developed an addiction to it.
Well,
And
did he show signs of like running out and needing more, or
he
how
was
did you
not
know that?
living with me at that
Okay.
time when he
Mm-hmm.
first got addicted. He was not living with me. I was not happy about his living circumstances. I was not happy with some of the people. So I would have
Mm-hmm.
to say the first thing was people. They
Yeah.
changed the people that they
Mm-hmm.
normally are around, I think. Or in his case, he did. And then he did move back home with me. And of course, I didn't know the real reason why he had to move back
Mm-hmm.
home. He had a full time job and worked, and he was self sufficient. And
Yeah.
but when he needed to come back home, I just didn't understand. But I, of course, did not say no. And
Mm-hmm.
after he was back home a little while, I noticed drastic changes in his personality. Very evasive, gone a lot. Changes in his appearance, even. But he would leave home every day and say he was going to work. He had an office job in a call center.
Mm-hmm.
I knew all the people he worked with. And anyway, one day I got a phone call I got a message on the answering machine for him that said he had not been to work for 3 days. And if they didn't hear from him, he would be released. And that was my wake up call.
That was it.
So when he
Now,
came
when you
home that
say that
night,
he had, oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah.
When
Oh, I
he
was just
came
going to
home
say
that
when
night,
he,
I asked him, and he said, "Oh no, I'm going to work." And then I played the message. And then he said, "I'm so glad you know. I'm so glad you know."
mm-hmm.
And he said, "I have a problem and I need help."
And so he did say, I need help.
Yes. And so he still had insurance, and he was still employed, and he was able to get help, good help,
Mm-hmm.
which is not always the case, as you know.
Yeah. Right.
If you don't have insurance and you're trying to get help, it's a completely different thing.
Yes. But even with insurance, did you face any kind of hurdles or challenges even with insurance?
We were so lucky that time. It was a blessing, but really it was a curse because it didn't give me reality.
Mm-hmm.
I made a couple of phone calls. I called a friend, and she was an older lady. She lived in North Carolina, and I told her what was going on, and she said, "I'll call you back." And she made a few phone calls, and she called me back, and she said, "Can you have him to Greensboro tomorrow?" And I said, well, of course. And so we got him right in to a great facility. And he got 30 full days, and
Mm.
then he got 30 days in a step down, and then he went to an Oxford house.
Which the
And
30
so,
days and 30 days is not always usual now. I mean,
oh, no,
you're
not at
lucky.
all.
Yeah, I mean, that's different now for sure. You get a lot
Yeah.
less.
And he
Yeah.
did great. And I went over and did the whole week, a family week, to learn all the things. And um, one of the things that they said, and I came away from there thinking, oh, that just can't be right. They said there will be a relapse.
Hmm.
And when there is, this is what you do.
Great
And
advice.
I think
Hmm.
most families maybe just take that and wave it away and say, oh no, we did all the things. It's going to be all right. But as soon as he got in the Oxford house, he relapsed.
Hmm. So
First
then what
week,
happened?
they kicked
What
him
happened at
out.
that point?
Oh,
Hmm.
it's an immediate, you have to leave
Hmm.
immediately. You don't get to hang around and figure something out. You're just out.
Yeah.
It was winter. It was below zero.
Hmm.
It was just after the holidays. And he didn't call us at first. And when he did call, he had used the last um, little bit of money he had to get checked in a hotel.
Hmm.
And we didn't know, but he had also sold everything he could sell, any kind of jewelry or anything he had, and bought a lot of drugs. And he was really messed up. And so the
Hmm.
next morning he called and said, you have to come and get me. I don't have enough money to even pay the bill, and I can't drive.
Hmm.
So two people had to go to bring the car back,
Hmm.
and we got him back home then. And by that point, he didn't have any more insurance,
Hmm.
and that's when reality set in. You know, you start trying to get someone in rehab with no insurance. It was impossible. And what we found was you make the calls and you finally find some place that you can do it. And by that time, they say, oh, I don't want to go.
Yeah. So let's
I
back up
did that
just for a
so many
minute.
times.
Let's back up just for a minute. When you said that, his personality, when he had moved back home, his personality was changing. Can you give us some examples of that? Because I'm sure people are watching that may haven't gotten to that point yet, and they would like to know what kind of personality changes to look for.
So many. Excessive sleeping, um, very evasive, very defensive.
Hmm.
If you do ask questions, they're going to have an answer for everything, and they're going to be very mad at you for asking the questions
Yeah.
and try to turn it around and make it your fault. It's not, it's you, not them.
Right. Pointing the finger back
And
at you. Hmm.
yeah. So, and that was, we always had such a good relationship. So that was very strange for me, we, for him to be that way towards me.
Hmm.
And I didn't know what to do and what to think. And then we also found out soon after that that he had written a lot of checks that were not good. And he would go to the grocery store and write checks. And that's when you would go to the store and you could say, I want to write this for 20 over.
Right.
So he
Yes.
could get the cash back.
Hmm.
And so he was doing that to support his habit.
I see. Hmm. Yeah.
And so just because he was so caught up in his own turmoil and lies and trying to feed his habit, there's no way anyone can act in their normal mode when you're doing that. If you're constantly trying to cover up what you're doing,
Hmm.
it's just not going to work.
Right.
And people are going to note that difference. He
So
had a lot
did
of
they?
weight loss.
A lot of weight
Weight
loss.
loss was
So
another
did he
thing.
did he go to
Habit
treatment? Did he go to treatment again, or was that the only time that he went?
did go several times, and sometimes he would just go to like a sober living house or some, little place that maybe had 10 guys. I remember he went someplace in Galax, and um, the last time he went to treatment, he went in Florida.
Hmm.
And we thought he was going to a program that had full treatment, had
Yeah,
outpatient treatment, sober living type thing. And as it turns out, it was just a bunch of guys living in a house. And the most clean time one of them had was about 30 days.
yeah,
So it was just a racket.
yeah.
And
So
it,
how would you have known about that as far as he's telling you that he was going somewhere in Florida, and how could you figure out what that place was or
well, he didn't know either. He didn't know that it was not what it presented to be. It was one
hmm
of those places, and of course, I don't know if a lot of people know about all that now, but there was a lot of stuff going on in Florida. First of all, it was with the being able to get the medicine through the
hmm
mail. It was just
hmm
pill mills, and they would have a teleconference phone call with you and then send you 90 Oxycontin.
yeah,
So he did that for a long time. But then they had the whole problem with the sober living houses there not being regulated the way they should.
hmm
And unfortunately, I know a lot of people who had children in those places that actually died
yeah.
while they were in treatment.
And I'm sure
Um,
there's probably some of that still happens. It's probably not as common now, but
mm, I think it is.
you think it is
I think
common.
it's under the carpet. And yeah, I know one person who was actually the owner of that place in Florida. He's still in business, and he's got places all the way up in North Carolina now.
So for people that are watching and they're thinking, okay, I want to make sure my child or my husband or my friend doesn't end up in a place like that, how would they know? What's your
You
advice to them?
Well, my advice is you go. You need to go look at it yourself. And then some states do have regulations on sober living houses.
Hmm.
Some don't, but you need to make sure it
Hmm.
is certified by the state.
Hmm. Hmm.
And, you know, places that are telling you, oh, they can stay here and then have outpatient treatment, probably not what it sounds like. And
Hmm.
a lot of those places will bill you excessively for drug
Yeah,
screens and blood work and things like that. And there's just so much of that goes on. So
yeah,
if you do get your loved one in somewhere and you start noticing you're getting a lot of, abnormal things that are being billed, that's a big red flag, big red flag. But
yeah.
it is just such a need that is not met. And I don't know where the answers are really going to come from, because
Hmm.
as long as we keep saying someone can get better in 30 days, it's just
Hmm.
not true.
Right.
And
Yeah. That's
as
just
long
that's
as,
just sticking your toe in the water. That 30 days is. It's
oh,
just
absolutely.
yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, and every person is different and every drug is different. Every person's mental health is different. And all of those things have to be encompassed, because chances are if there's a drug problem, there's a mental health problem. Maybe not
Absolutely.
always, but there's been some trauma or something that has led up to that.
Did Davy have any diagnosed mental health
Yes,
challenges that you're willing to talk about or
he did. He was diagnosed bipolar,
hmm
and he would take medicine sometimes
sometimes?
and sometimes not. He didn't like the way it made him
Hmm.
feel.
Hmm.
But in the beginning, I couldn't even get him diagnosed with the mental health disorder. I had one practitioner that said, "Well, which came first, the drugs or the mental health?"
Okay.
So, my answer is he had the mental health problem, and
Yes.
it helped fuel the drug problem. It was
Yes.
self-medication, 100%. But he went to a lot of programs that were outpatient here down at Frontier Health in Johnson City. I would drive him back and forth. We lived in Bristol, and drive him back and forth every day to these, 2-hour, 3-hour programs and stuff. and he, not that he couldn't drive himself, but because at those points and times, I wasn't gonna depend on him to go where he said he was going. I needed to make sure he was
Yeah.
getting the treatment he said. Um, but he was in, which I don't think this place is open anymore. There's a program called the Hay House that was open for a long time in Kingsport. He got court ordered in there twice, and he overdosed both times he was in there. So,
So what I'm hearing you say is that he did courses of inpatient treatment, outpatient treatment, sober living houses, intensive outpatient, like 2 and 3 hours a time, different
right.
days. He did all the things that were
Yeah.
available to him.
Court ordered.
Um, okay. So what was your
So
experience with the justice system at that time?
at that time,
And and,
Sullivan
and
County,
this was how many years ago was that, first of all? This has been
well, David passed away in 2015.
okay.
So his problems started, I would say, he was about 12, 13 years of addiction
Okay.
that we were aware of. So, but
So
it,
this
like in
has been
Sullivan
some
County,
time
there,
ago.
yeah, yeah. And Sullivan
Hmm.
County didn't really have a program to speak of, except if you had some type of criminal charge, they would send you to the Hay House.
Hmm.
Um, Washington County had a program, and he completed that program very well, very successfully. And I felt like they had a good program.
And of course, all that has changed now because we have recovery
Absolutely.
courts, we have recovery courts, we have mental health courts, we have lots of programs and even treatment inside some of our facilities, some of our justice system facilities, some of our jails. It just depends on the county and what they have funding for and et cetera. So it is a lot different today. But let
It
me
is
ask
evolving,
you.
yes.
Yeah, it's evolving, and so happy about that. But there's still a lot of stigma and a lot of misunderstandings still in the justice system. I mean, some have progressed so far, and some are still, back in the old days and not willing to do treatment and this, that, and the other, and they can. I mean, that it's their place to do. But let me ask you about finding finding supports though for you. How did you go about that? Because the family, we can talk about the person that has the disease of addiction. All we can talk about them all day long, and they are the important one. But the other flip side of that coin is the family member, the friend, the coworker, the husband, the wife, the whoever that is their cheerleader, and wants to help them get better and wants to help them improve their life, wants to keep them alive. And so that person, which would have been you in this situation and his other family members, I'm sure.
Right. His dad
What
and his brother, yes.
Sure. So, what kind of support? I know there was some support back then and there's definitely more support now. What would you say to someone? Where would you tell them to go and look where to find support systems and what worked for you and his other friends and family members that was trying to help him?
Support is so much more available now than it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, if you wanted to find some support, you had to physically get in your car and go to that meeting.
Hmm.
And that is hard. You're asking yourself, when you feel like your whole world is coming down on your shoulders, you're asking yourself to go sit in a room of strangers
Hmm.
and talk about what's going on. That's the hardest thing I ever had, really, for myself. And when I went to the first meeting, which I drove to Johnson City to an R&On meeting, I found it online, and or actually maybe I found it on a pamphlet that he brought me. I
Yeah.
can't even remember. And because he used to tell me, I want you to go to a meeting. You need help too. He would tell me.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it just seemed ridiculous to me. And so I did look into it and I went to a few meetings. I bought the books, but I didn't like some of the things I was hearing,
Hmm. Such as?
such as you have to let your loved one do this by themselves.
Hmm.
You have to let them hit rock bottom.
Yes.
You have to quit enabling. I didn't like to hear that stuff because my mother's heart told me that this was my child and I
Yes.
could fix it.
Hmm.
I had fixed everything in his life from the time he came from the hospital, and I could continue to do that.
Hmm.
So I didn't go back. I read the books, but I didn't go back.
Hmm.
And that was my mistake. And that's why I'm so diligent now about posting it online
Yeah.
every day for people because maybe it will help someone. And I feel I'm more receptive to what the things say now.
Yes. Hmm. It's easier to
Yeah,
look back now because you're not in the
Mhm.
thick of it. And but yeah.
Right, because when you are right in the middle of that, your heart is just so closed
Mhm.
and digesting that information the way it's meant to be. It's just too hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but if you'll give it a try, and like I said, there's so many avenues to get it now. You can attend meetings online.
Hmm.
You can go to Celebrate Recovery. You can go to Naranon. You can go to Al-Anon. There's just so many different ways to get the help now. And it's the
Yeah.
most important thing you should do for
There's
yourself.
faith-based ones, there's not faith-based ones,
Right.
there's ones that, go strictly by the book, ones that deviate from the book somewhat. I mean, you can find
Right.
any kind, whatever your lane is in life, you can find a meeting that fits that lane and your heart that can help you. And, you know, I think a lot of people, a lot of families that have never been to or experienced anything like Nar-Anon or Al-Anon or Celebrate Recovery or Living Free or any of those models, they think, I'm like you just said, I'm not this one that's sick. I don't really need help. But the old adage of addiction is a family disease, it really is. There's something there that every person in the family has been affected by this and they need help getting through this. And
Yes.
honestly, even families that don't have addiction in their family, we all have sickness of some sort that we can use help getting through.
I think it would be rare that there is not a
Hmm.
family that doesn't have some type of addiction
Right.
somewhere
Because
in
there's
their
so many
family.
different kinds. You've got
Right.
addiction to drugs, you've got alcohol, you've got porn, you've got gambling, you've got, eating. I mean, there's a
Food.
million
Yeah.
different types. Yeah. All of that and many, many, many more things. But we all have things that we need to work on in order to become a better person. And the bottom line is we cannot help others unless we are constantly pouring positive things into ourselves, reading positive things, being around positive people, learning the steps to become whole and to heal. And without doing that, how can you be 100% for this person that is so sick that you're trying to help? I think that's, yeah.
I have people who have no addiction of any type, but they tell me that they find something in that Narnon
Hmm.
readings that I post that helps them. And I think
Absolutely.
that's good. And so I just will continue to post them that, and I share them
Yeah.
with a couple of different groups that have asked. And
Mhm.
one lady that started a group that's grown quite large, um, she said that she had lived with Narnon and Al-Anon for the past 15 years because it was way back in her family. She didn't have a child or anything, but I think it was a father and an uncle. And so she had started with those programs because of that. And so she started this group and it's for grieving mothers. And Um, anyway, and then sadly, she got killed in a freak accident in Mexico. She got
Mhm.
somebody hit and run, and killed her just recently. And I thought, well, here this woman who started this group and, um, had believed so firmly in these programs just gets mowed down by a car in Mexico. I couldn't believe it.
So crazy.
But she
So,
did a great thing, starting the group.
so, for other families that may be watching that they have also lost a loved one to to overdose, what would you want people to understand about that that you've experienced?
Mm. I think the first year is not not reality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the real grief doesn't really start in until the second year. I think in the first year you have so much adrenaline and I'm going to change the world and um, you know, I think God gives us a lot of ways that our body doesn't have to deal with it in the beginning just to protect
Mm-hmm.
us. And then that real sense of loss is going to hit you pretty hard the second year.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a very trying time, but you have to just keep picking up and going, but you can't stop taking care of yourself. You
Yeah.
can let yourself sink way down into that depression and that loss, and it might be really hard to come out of that. But if you can just, maybe you have a bad day, but don't let it become a bad week. Um, just keep abreast of what's going on and keep making your child's story relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Don't quit talking about it. You're going to help someone whether you know it or not. And you have to find your new purpose.
Yeah.
You've spent years probably fighting for this loved one, and now you don't really know which direction to go. So you have to find that new purpose, whatever it is, and you have to keep probably going to either some type of private therapy or group therapy. There's grief groups, and it's
Mm-hmm.
important that you have that support from other people who understand what you're going through. And again,
Yeah.
those groups are really relevant online. You can find those very easily if you're online, and there's in-person groups also. But um, I think it's just important. And the more you help others, the better you are going to find that you're doing.
For sure. For sure. Well, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we'll close. You've been so inspirational and so kind to share all of your family's situations and your heart and your experiences. The last question I would have for you is to the person watching this, the concerned person, the family member, the friend, the coworker, the whoever, and they're scared right now. What would you say to them? What would you say to them to do or to not do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I
Mhm.
found some letters that David had wrote to me through the years, and I look back on those and I say, yeah, he was really right, because one letter commented on that every conversation was explosive. And it
Mhm.
was because it was all about blaming, and you have to have enough strength to take a step back, and that's going to be really hard, and let them come through some of this on their own.
Yeah.
You can't fix it all.
Mhm.
You don't have to let them be living in the street. And a lot of people, someone that I was very close with, said to me, if you don't make him leave, I'm not going to speak to you. anymore.
Oh, well,
Well,
every situation is different. I don't know that
yeah.
anybody could say that, you know.
And so I didn't speak to that person for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And he, he meant well. He did. He was tired of seeing me hurt,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the right step. And I would always say, this was always my response. I have to do what I know is right for me in
Mm-hmm.
my heart that I can live with.
Yeah. That's exactly it. What is right for you and what you can live with, not what's right for that person and what
Right.
they're okay with. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know for some families, they have had to say, you can't live here and I'm not going to help you live anywhere, and that's the right thing for them. I think every family has got, and this is my experience working with families over the past 15 years. Every family is so different, and every person that's fighting the disease of addiction is so very different and has to be treated as such. So there's not a
Family
right way
dynamic.
or a wrong way. Yeah.
Right. Everyone's family dynamic is different.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
you have to you have to listen to that
Hmm.
because, you know, I just knew for me, and there were a couple times I did tell him he had to leave, and I didn't make him stay gone very long.
Hmm.
But I can remember one day when he was leaving, I thought my soul could not take it.
Hmm. Yeah.
It was terrible. But I
I
knew
can
he wasn't going
imagine.
to be on the street. You know,
Hmm.
you have to look outside the box sometimes. I had a
Hmm.
friend who let David come and stay with him for a while
Hmm.
when things were really off track here. And so sometimes what you need is not just the cookie cutter, got to go to treatment, can't get him in treatment, that's the end of the story. There's sometimes different answers, but you have to be willing to open up and share with somebody
I
and
have
let go
families
of the
asking
stigma.
me. Yes, yes. I have families ask me all the time, when they're in this situation, some earlier on and some later on, well, what kind of treatment, should we look for? And I'm like, well, there's a million different ways of recovery for people, and every person is there again is different. Just like, whether you have to say you have to leave my house, I'm not going to help you anymore. That is right for some people it's not. The type of treatment that they get, whether it's inpatient, whether it's, all faith-based, whether it's just counseling only, whether it is complete abstinence, just cut it off and that is it kind of thing, or a combination of all those, or just meetings. There's so many different ways to recovery and finding recovery and staying there. And there's probably no one person that has, a story and a success story like anyone else's. They're all different because we're humans
Yeah.
and we're all different. So there's, like was saying, there's no right way or wrong way to find recovery. There's no right way or wrong way to get to that place. It's just what works for you, and whatever works for you, stick with it.
Right.
Bottom
And
line.
the
Mhm.
other thing is what works for you at one point may not work at another point. You have to
Absolutely.
be keen to that too, because things can get too comfortable and then, it might
Hmm.
stop working. So you have to be willing to change
Yes.
what you're doing. Um, I would say never, ever say, I'm not going to take you to a meeting. I used to drive David to meetings and I would be so angry while I was doing it. I have to stop what I'm doing, take you to a meeting. I didn't feel like it, but you know what? I wouldn't refuse him to take him to a meeting.
Right.
And again,
Right.
it wasn't that he didn't have a car. There was times when he just wasn't going to be trusted with the car. And I didn't have enough trust that he was going to go to the meeting. So I would take him. But the meetings are such a vital thing for them. And sometimes I would take him and then he would get someone to bring him home. And
Hmm.
we learned to work with each other, not against each other
Yeah.
after a while. But in the beginning, it's very hard. You're so angry, you're so scared, you're so upset that you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find that happy medium in there so you can both be okay, or that the whole family can be okay. But
Yeah, right.
um, that is there if you work for it. I mean, in the end, David had a lot of success. He had 2 years that he
Hmm.
didn't use. Um, he still lived here with me, but he had his separate quarters, and it was a good thing. And he went to barber school, opened barber shop, and was doing great.
Yeah,
And then um, a lot of people don't realize that drugs that are maybe not meant for one thing can still be abused. And his thing was diet pills. He found out would
hmm
get him high.
hmm
And there was a lady in the shopping center where he was in Saltville that was driving from Bristol from a diet clinic, taking orders for the diet pills and delivering them back to Saltville. And he got hooked back on diet pills. And he told me, he said, it's just like cocaine, which was his drug of choice.
hmm
So, she eventually got caught and she went to jail. But in the meantime, she got him back on pills.
yeah,
And who would have thought? Those things
yeah,
are on every corner.
yeah,
So you have to be, and I didn't know. Again, I didn't know that it was something that he would abuse,
right.
um, and that
There's
it
so
was
many,
even
there's so
going
many
on.
things today, even today, there's all the different things well, I won't even go into all of them, but there's all these different things that people make and then they manufacture and they sell and, the
Yes,
things that are sold in gas stations and all,
yes.
that you would never think, but they end up causing lots and lots of pain for people. So,
Well,
yeah.
like I said, that woman did get caught. She was a nurse. She was a registered
hmm
nurse.
hmm
So she did go to jail.
Okay.
And that whole little operation got shut down, but it was operating out of a beauty shop.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
you
I
know,
can't thank you enough for all of the information that you've shared and for being so open and it's just this is great information for people looking for support and I just can't thank you enough for,
well, thank
being that
you
that
for all
light
that
for
you're doing.
others. Oh, well. Um, I can't wait to get this up for people to watch. And for those that are still watching, and I'm getting ready to close it down, but you can go to my website at hopeforthehelpers.com with hope with four, the helpers, the number four, and you can sign up to get all of our recent news and links and things. And so when new things come out, you'll get an email. So again, today we had Rhonda Coffey and a wonderful mom, Nana, advocate, community leader. Just so proud to have her here. And again, we want to thank you for being here. So,
Well, thank you
okay.
again.